Well, as you know, I'm going to talk about the stage 3, the biosphere. So pay attention and wake up. The biosphere consists of all life on Earth and all parts of the Earth in which life exists, including land, water, and the atmosphere. The biosphere contains every organism from bacteria living underground to giant trees in rainforests, whales in polar seas, mole spores drifting through the air, and of course humans. Ecology is the scientific study of interactions among organisms and between organisms and their physical environment. Humans live within the biosphere and depend on ecological processes to produce such essentials as food and drinkable water that can be bought and sold or traded. The levels of organization are species. It's a group of similar organisms that can breed and produce fertile offspring. Population is a group of individuals that belong to the same species and live in the same area. Community is an assemblage of different populations that live together in a defined area. Ecosystem are all the organisms that live in a place together with their physical environments. Biome is a group of ecosystems that share similar climates and typical organisms. Our entire planet, with all these organisms and physical environments, is known as the biosphere. I hope that with this kind of pizza you can understand them and memorize them easily. Ecologists use the word environment to refer to all conditions or factors surrounding an organism. Environmental conditions include biotic and abiotic factors. The biological influences on organisms are called biotic factors. A biotic factor is any living part of the environment with which an organism might interact, including animals, plants, mushrooms, and bacteria. Physical components of an ecosystem are called abiotic factors. An abiotic factor is any non-living part of the environment such as sunlight, heat, precipitation, humidity, wind, or water currents, soil type, and so on. The difference between biotic and abiotic factors may seem to be clear and simple, but many physical factors can be influenced by the activities of organisms. Regardless of their tools, modern ecologists use three methods in their work: observation, experimentation, and modeling. Each of these approaches relies on scientific methodology and inquiry. Observation is often the first step in asking ecological questions. Experimentation. Experiments can be used to test hypotheses. An ecologist may, for example, set up an artificial environment in a laboratory or greenhouse to see how growing plants react to different conditions of temperature, lighting, or carbon dioxide concentrations. Modeling consists of mathematical formulas based on data collected through observation and experimentation. Further observations by ecologists can be used to test predictions based on those models. Autotrophs use solar or chemical energy to produce food by assembling inorganic compounds into complex organic molecules, but autotrophs do more than feed themselves. Autotrophs store energy in forms that make it available to other organisms that eat them. That's why autotrophs are also called primary producers. Primary producers are the first producers of energy-rich compounds that are later used by other organisms. The best known and most common primary producers harness solar energy through the process of photosynthesis, which captures light energy and uses it to produce into power chemical reactions that convert carbon dioxide and water into oxygen and energy-rich carbohydrates, such as sugar and starches. Other autotrophs, such as sulfur bacteria, use energy stored in chemical bonds in a process called chemosynthesis, in which chemical energy is used to produce carbohydrates. Chemosynthetic organisms are not only found in the deepest, darkest ocean. However, several types of chemosynthetic producers have since been discovered in more parts of the biosphere than none expected. Some chemosynthetic bacteria live in harsh environments, such as deep sea volcanic vents or hot springs. Others live in tidal marshes along the coast. Animals fungi, and many bacteria cannot directly harness energy from the environment as primary producers. These organisms, known as heterotrophs, must acquire energy from other organisms, are also called consumers. They are the organisms that rely on other organisms for energy and nutrients. The types of consumers are the carnivores that kill and eat other animals, the scavengers that are animals that consume the carcasses of other animals that have been killed by predators or died by natural causes. The decomposers feed on by chemical breaking down organic matter. The herbivores obtain energy and nutrients by eating plants, leaves, roots, seeds, or fruits. The omnivores are animals whose diets naturally include a variety of different foods that usually include both plants and animals. The detritivores commonly digest decomposers that live on and in detritus particles. Energy flows through an ecosystem in a one-way stream from primary producers to various consumers. A food chain is a series of steps in which organisms transfer energy by eating and being eaten. In some aquatic food chains, primary producers are a mixture of floating algae called phytoplankton and attached algae. In most ecosystems, feeding relationships are much more complicated than the relationships described in a single simple chain. Ecologists call this network of feeding interactions a food web. Also, we have to mention that decomposers and detritivores are as important in most food webs as other consumers are. They break down dead and decaying matter and release nutrients that can be reused by primary producers. As you already saw, food webs are complex, so it is often difficult to predict exactly how they will respond to environmental change. Relationships in food webs are not simple. Disturbances do happen, and their effects can be dramatic. Krill are one example of a diverse group of small swimming animals called zooplankton that feed on marine algae. Krill populations have dropped substantially because over the time a large amount of sea ice has melted. A drop in the krill population can cause drops in the population of all other members of the food web. Each step in a food chain or food web is called trophic level. Primary producers always make up the first trophic level. Various consumers occupy every other level. One way to illustrate the trophic levels in an ecosystem is with an ecological pyramid. Ecological pyramids show the relative amount of energy or matter contained within each trophic level in a given food chain or food web. There are three different types of ecological pyramids of energy: pyramids of biomass and pyramids of numbers. The pyramids of energy show the relative amount of energy available at each trophic level of a food chain or food web. As you can see, it's very easy to observe that it's decreasing 10% at each trophic level. The total amount of living tissue within a trophic level is called its biomass. A pyramid of biomass illustrates the relative amount of living organic matter available at each trophic level in an ecosystem. A pyramid of numbers shows the relative number of individual organisms at each trophic level in an ecosystem. Thank you for paying attention. I hope this will help you to understand this chapter.